On this episode of In Our Expert Opinion podcast, I chat with Chance Creighton. He spent his entire career up to this point in the Arkansas ag industry. He's an avid hunter and soon to be member of our team here at Saunders. We explore the rich intersection of Arkansas farming and hunting, discuss prime investment opportunities in Arkansas ag land, and hear Chance's personal journey into the industry. It's a great blend of insights and stories about what makes Arkansas a unique place to farm and hunt. I think you'll enjoy.
In Our Expert Opinion podcast is brought to you by SVN Saunders Ralston Danzler Real Estate, a full-service land and commercial brokerage with over $4 billion in transactions since 1996.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of In Our Expert Opinion podcast. My name's David Hill, and if you're a frequent listener of this podcast, then you might recognize my voice from a few weeks ago. I was on the pod as a guest with Tyler Davis. But if you don't recognize me, I am the managing director of our Arkansas team, and I'll be stepping in from time to time to host the podcast from now on. Linda and Chad touched on this. I think they have a few times already, but as our brokerage continues to expand our physical presence throughout the Southeast, it just makes a lot of sense to hear from different hosts and guests who can speak to the unique aspects of the land and commercial markets in their own parts of the country. So for me, that's Arkansas. And also, if you've been listening to this podcast for more than just a couple months, I have to assume that you're probably not super familiar with the land market in Arkansas. So the goal for today's podcast is to introduce all of y'all to the Arkansas hunting and farming industries and how those two things work in tandem with each other to make Arkansas such a unique and sought after place to both hunt and farm. So without any further ado, I'm excited to introduce y'all to our guest and my very close friend. His name is Chance Creighton. I met Chance back in 2010. He was a fraternity brother of mine, and he's also been a hunting buddy of mine for pretty much as long as I've known him. We primarily duck hunt together nowadays, but I actually give Chance the credit for introducing me to deer hunting, which I am now hopelessly addicted to. So thanks for that, Chance.
Yeah,
I'm actually very thankful for that. My wife might not be so much, but
it
she
goes like
does.
that sometimes.
Yeah, but she loves eating deer meat, so I guess she can thank you for that as well. But
Yeah,
no, I chose to bring Chance on for several different reasons. For one, I mean, he spent pretty much his entire life and career, for that matter, in and around the Arkansas ag industry. So he is certainly an expert in that field and can speak to a lot of these things at a high level. Also, he's probably the most passionate hunter I've ever met. And I'm going to give him a compliment, which just pains me to do this, Chance, but he's probably one of the most skilled hunters I know as well. And then also, and maybe most importantly of all, Chance is actually going to be joining our team as an advisor in Arkansas in the coming weeks. So real excited to have him on board. But yeah, please introduce Chance. Hopefully you liked that intro, Chance. Is there anything you'd like to add personally, just about you? And then also would love to just hear about you specifically as it relates to your passion for hunting, your passion for the land, your passion for farming, and your personal connection to that in Arkansas specific.
yeah. No, I really like the introduction. I hope you didn't oversell a little bit. I feel like it now. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on me to perform. But no,
No
that's great.
pressure.
Yeah, I grew up in Southeast Arkansas, and for those who may not know, Southeast Arkansas is it is all farming. It's like one big farming community. I often joke that where I grew up, if you didn't farm, then you sold things to farmers, and that's more or less true. So it's been a real pleasure to be in the industry, to understand the ins and outs and how it all comes together to make a crop. It's been really cool. I currently live in Little Rock. Uh, I'm married to my high school sweetheart, and we have a year and a half old little boy who is a lot of energy. So yeah, man, it's going great, and I'm super excited to be on today, but then also to be get the opportunity to work with you a little closer.
Yeah, same here. So, like Chance said, he lives in Little Rock. He'll stay in Little Rock, and he'll primarily, more than likely, cover the Delta region. So, what made you decide to want to go into that industry in the first place? You kind of hit on this a second ago, but you're actually selling to farmers. You're not actually farming,
Yeah,
right?
correct. I think just more or less being raised around it is probably the main thing. But I think what really inspired me to get involved with it is in college I met one of our mutual best friends, and being around him and his family. They have a over 100-year-old farming operation, and to see how they lived and how every member of the family uh, was a part of the farm and made it go. And then not only how they managed to operate the farm, but how they treated people that they were around, and how just good of people and individuals they all are, separately, but as a collective as well. Really inspired me to dig a little deeper into the industry. I wanted to be a part of that. Something that I saw from them that was so inspiring and so uplifting. And that just it really got me interested in being a part of that as well.
Yeah, cool. We'll probably try and keep a lot of this relatively high level, just as a introduction for most that may be completely unfamiliar with it. But um, for anyone that's potentially looking to invest in Arkansas ag, or from a recreational standpoint, a lot of people decide they want hunt clubs here. Specifically, duck hunting is top notch. So we'll kind of dive into a little bit of the details there, which I know that excites Chance. Quick little
Yeah.
fact about Chance: he is currently working on trying to kill a turkey in every state in the country. Which you're
Yeah.
at how many right now, Chance?
Uh, Not even close, but we're at like seven. So
Okay.
it's we're on the move. I got a plan, but as everybody knows that hunts, things don't go according to your plan, so it's okay.
Well, hey, that's you've killed turkeys in 6 more states than I have, so you're ahead of me there. But
Yeah.
um, well, let's dive in. Give us just a general broad overview of the farming industry in Arkansas, and explain how that plays into what makes Arkansas also such a great place to hunt. I know those two things work
Yeah.
in tandem.
Yeah, so I think to understand that you need to understand the geography of Arkansas a little bit. So it's split between the Ozarks and the Ouachita Mountains in the west and the north, and the Mississippi alluvial plain in the east. And what splits that alluvial plain is the Arkansas River, which comes out of Colorado through Oklahoma and then cuts through the middle of Arkansas, headed southeast, and eventually dumping into the Mississippi River in southeast Arkansas. The Mississippi River comes down, comes between Illinois and Missouri, Tennessee and Arkansas, and then what creates Arkansas's eastern border. And so everything in between those two rivers, the Arkansas and the Mississippi, is the Mississippi alluvial plain. And so what that plain is it's the result of river sediment deposits over a millennia. So creating really rich soil, really flat, and which just creates a perfect habitat for agriculture, but also ducks. So we're right in the middle of the Mississippi Flyway, which more or less is the interstate for bird travel from north to south. And so when you get into the Mississippi alluvial plain, you've got all this rich soil that's flat, it holds water. And so you've got a perfect storm of bottomland timber that holds water in the winter, but also these rice, it was perfect habitat for rice and rice field production. And so you've got you can kill green-headed mallards in a rice field. The next day, kill them in bottomland timber, and it's a perfect storm. And yeah, it's perfect for anybody. Any hunter would love to hunt Arkansas. Anywhere in the country, you ask, hey, where would you like to hunt ducks? They want to hunt ducks in Arkansas.
Yep. Yep. So you hit on this a little bit, but what types of crops are most commonly produced here, and what are some of the key factors that make Arkansas farmland uniquely productive compared to other farming states?
Yeah, so you really got four main ones. You've got corn and soybeans and cotton and rice. We're the 10th largest producer in soybeans. We're the fourth largest producer in cotton. We produce a little over 500,000 acres. But kind of the what we hang our hat on is that we rank number one in the country in rice production. We're harvesting 1.6 million acres on average a year. And so that creates tremendous opportunity for rice production, but also for jobs in the state. It produces over 20,000 jobs, and so the economic benefit of the state is pretty incredible.
Yeah. So it's a combination of the Delta, the flat ground, the Mississippi Flyway, and the rice. That's what's attracting all the ducks.
Yep,
There you go. There
that's
you
it.
have it. The
It's
beloved
that easy.
greenhead.
That's right.
Yeah, man. So that's great. Thanks for sharing all that. What are some surprising facts about Arkansas farming that most people may or may not know?
Yeah, so in many parts of the country, when it comes to irrigation, there's a couple different ways. It's either dry land, so no irrigation. In the Midwest, they get periodic rains. They don't need quite as much rainfall or irrigation moisture in the soil as we do. Soil types, frequent rain events, etc. There's also pivot irrigation. There's constant flood and there's furrow irrigation. So a lot of what goes on in Arkansas, particularly cotton, corn, and soybeans, is furrow irrigation. So what generally just high level what that is you take a plow with evenly spaced plows. You go in the field, dig those trenches. It creates what we call a bed, and that seed bed is where you plant the crop. You lay flexible plastic pipe on the high end of the field, and then you water from the high to low. This is pretty unique to Arkansas. There are some places that in Western Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, all these places that kind of touch Arkansas, where it's also that super flat terrain. But this is not something that happens everywhere. Um, in addition to that, Arkansas has great access to water. Uh, this is important. We don't get the rainfall that the Midwest gets, and we can't depend on dry land because of our climate, because of that. So we have through the aquifer, we have really great access to subsurface water, but we're inundated with canals and ditches and reservoirs and ponds and rivers and lakes, and all of that culminates to bring us a lot of access to water. Where you have access to water, you have access to making consistent crops. Having an investment that pays year over year consistently is a huge benefit.
Yeah, and so the flat ground is key to rice farming specifically,
Oh
correct?
yeah,
That's why you really,
yeah,
yeah. How is that?
yeah. With the rice, you generally speaking, you're in a constant flood. It's a semi-aquatic plant. So how we manage weeds in rice is by putting a flood on it, and so it can withstand the constant soaking and moisture, but that flood is also going to keep grasses out. It's not Roundup resistant, say like soybeans or cotton or corn would be. So it can't be sprayed with Roundup to kill the grasses. So we manage those pesky grasses with water.
Okay. And does Arkansas rotate their crops more or less than other farming states, would you say?
Um, Definitely. It seems to me that it's definitely more than the Midwest, where you have like heavy corn. We need to get that rotation in. Soybeans do a neat thing where they put nitrogen back into the ground. We have a big problem with leaching nitrogen, so corn requires it. So we get a pretty heavy corn and soybean rotation, whereas the Midwest may go a few extra years. One of the things is we have a lot of variety of soil types. Um, you could break them down into two. You could say lighter and heavier soil. Your rice is going to be more conducive for heavier soil because it holds water. So lighter soil would leach water a lot easier. So you're not going to be able to keep a constant flood on it like you would on that heavier ground. In the same in the same breath, cotton doesn't need heavy ground because it loves a drought um, environment. So it needs to only have short periods of rainfall or moisture on it.
Hmm. Interesting. What are some other misconceptions that people might have about farming in Arkansas?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think of Arkansas as like a very small farm state. Uh, um, I've worked now kind of internationally with agriculture, and I see it. And when I look at it, on average, our farmers are farming more acres on average than a lot of states, especially the ones that are kind of adjoining next to us. But also across the Midwest, you can make it out there, on a 500 to 1,000 acres, where you see a lot of guys here farming over 2,000, over 3,000 acres. So by no means is this just a lot of small farms patched together. It's a broad landscape of farmland.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've noticed as well. Well, you've mentioned a couple things that stood out just in terms of, and I'm interested to hear you kind of talk to how those present unique challenges for Arkansas farming. But
Mhm.
you mentioned the soil types, the different soil types, and maybe the lack of rainfall compared to other states.
Mhm.
Can you speak to that a little bit more? How does that present unique challenges to farmers in the state?
Yeah, so we don't get a lot of rainfall during the summer months. I don't have the data to show, but it seems like it stops raining late May, and it does not start again until October. Um, this is this would be a problem in a lot of areas of the country where they don't have access to water. We combat this by having good access to water, and not everywhere has it, but for the most part, we have good subsurface water and we have great surface water that we have access to. So it is heavy irrigation, but that also presents a really big opportunity to have that consistent crop that I was talking about. Um, with the different soil types, I think you could see that as a negative, um, uh, or as a challenge, because it forces you to diversify your portfolio. That's really a good thing. So if say if soybeans are out competing rice in the commodity market, then you may hedge a little further into soybeans. Or if corn is out competing cotton or cotton's out competing corn, then you can hedge a little further that way. And so that's one thing that I really like about having multiple types of soil is that you can always uh, plant based off of what the market's demanding. And I think that we all are in a better place when that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, so on that note, how has the land market for ag related properties been how is it impacted by shifts in commodity prices, or is it more stable here?
Yeah, I think it's definitely more stable. Uh, if anything, the market's increased year over year. I don't see, even with commodity markets where they're currently at. Um, there's still quite a bit of demand for land. Um, and one of the things is because we have, four competing crops out there. So where soybeans and corn are really struggling right now, rice is actually not so bad. So it gives us a little bit more opportunity than it would if we were handcuffed to corn or soybeans or something.
Yeah. Well, that's obviously very important, and a good kind of segue into, opportunities for investment for those who are listening that might be interested in that,
Hmm.
specifically, your ag REITs and that sort of thing. But and then we could also talk about those who might be interested in potentially looking at purchasing a recreational property. I know we've
Hmm.
mainly been talking about duck hunting. There's more than just duck hunting in the state
Sure.
of Arkansas, but that is very unique to the state. So that's why we're primarily touching on that. But um, Chance, what would you say makes Arkansas a particularly attractive investment for ag investors compared to other regions?
Yeah. Um, a little bit of a broken record. Access to water. So a couple things to look for, though. I would look for good drainage. It, Having too much water is worse than having not having enough. So look for good drainage. So if I'm looking at an ag property, I'm looking for good ditches, good canals, a way to get water off. Land forming, land leveling. Um, uh, what uh, what are we looking at from a precision grading perspective? Those are going to be big things. Something that's taken hold really well in Arkansas. So we've done a lot of land forming. A lot of things are precision grade. One of the things that makes us particularly attractive, and I'll say it again, is the crop portfolio diversity. Just being able to have multiple things to to use as a tool. Um, Price per acre compared to the Midwest. Um, Nobody wants to be the cheapest in town, but I think it is a little bit more um, opportunistic priced wise. We're just not seeing the super high dollar an acre values that the Midwest is seeing.
Why is that, do you think?
Oh, I think that it's their soil types up there. They can produce really high yields without the input, without the intensive irrigation cycles that we do.
Hmm. Okay.
Yep. Um, and then, like you said, potential for it to have recreational value. Some of the best hunting in the state is in ag fields. They're going to produce It's going to produce when your deer have the opportunity to go out and munch on soybeans and corn all year. They are going to have more nutrition and more available food than they would if they were in a super timbered area. So you're going to produce big deer. You're going to have the opportunity for ducks. You're going to have the opportunity for turkey. It's really a hunter's paradise. Not to steal Louisiana's state slogan, but it is a hunter's paradise.
Well, they're kind of our little brother in all
Yeah,
aspects
yeah,
anyway. So
that's
we're
right.
hopefully by the time everyone's listening to this, the Hogs will have beat LSU. But we'll see. We're coming off a big emotional win against Tennessee, so we're all
Yep,
on cloud nine still.
that's
Hopefully
right.
that lasts. But well, what about from like a risk reward standpoint? If you're someone investing in farmland here, particularly in relation to crops like rice and soybeans, what are some of the risks? And I mean, the rewards are kind of obvious, but just
Yeah.
from a yield standpoint, I'm interested to hear you talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. I mean, the biggest risk in agriculture altogether is always going to be uh, unpredictable commodity markets. I don't know if that's region specific. There is ways to try to combat this, and it's something that it's something you would do post purchase if you were to go out and buy some crop ground. It gives you the opportunity to negotiate the lease agreement if you're going to have somebody to farm, whether that's going to be crop share, cash rent, or something like that. I think of crop share as like investing heavily into stocks and heavy risk type situation, where I think of cash rent as like putting money into a savings account where you're going to have or a CD or something where you have a consistent exchange of money. I think those are all things you can think about when you're calculating the risk of purchasing a property here. You know, this is not. I mentioned this earlier about the Midwest, where they get the periodic rains. Their soil type is really good at holding moisture. It's super nutrient rich. Um, it doesn't take as much intention as it takes in Arkansas. We have to make sure we're on top of our soil health, on top of our irrigation. It is an intensive irrigation cycle. It's not a plant it and leave it kind of state. Um, uh, but there's still a lot of good there. I mean, we're still producing really high quality, high yield crops.
I was gonna ask you a little bit just about any state specific incentives or programs for ag investors in Arkansas. I don't want to bore everyone to tears, so we don't have to go super in depth with that. But if you could just touch on those from a very high level, that might
Sure.
be of interest to some.
Yeah, there's grants and cost share programs through the Department of Agriculture. Kind of like the specialty crop block grant program. There's the Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Program. There's conservation and wildlife enhancement incentives through the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. And there's always tax incentives and development programs through the Arkansas Development Economic Development Commission. So there are things out there, and you know that one point about tax incentives and development programs. I mean, those are things you're going to have to think about post purchase. So it's good that there's programs out there to assist with that.
Yeah, I actually do want to dig in a little bit to the. You brought up the conservation and wildlife enhancement
Hmm.
incentives through the Game and Fish Commission. I'm not sure how much you know about that, but is that I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about it if you do know about it. And is there any does that inhibit farmers whenever they participate in that program at all?
Um, so one thing, one of the probably the most popular programs for conservation is, for lack of a better way, paying people to put a flood on their fields during duck season.
Yeah,
Um, Farming practices over the years, equipment has gotten better, so we're taking more grain out of the field. Um, we are getting it seems like the climate has shifted to where we're able to get in the field sooner. So you're seeing more people out planting in late March, early April, where that timeline used to start in May. And so, what really want to do is have their fields totally dry when they get to the field to start planting. If you're putting a flood on it, it has the potential to hold moisture longer. So that would be how it would inhibit. What these programs do is it pays the farmer, the landowner, to offset that, to offset those damages, and encourages them to put a flood on the fields so that ducks have a place to stop. As equipment's gotten better, practices have changed. There's a lot of fields out there that are just dirt fields. They don't have any food for ducks or geese when they're coming through. So if we can give them more opportunities to stop in, to seek shelter, but also to create more recreational opportunities, and the farmer and landowner get an incentive, I think that's a win-win for everybody.
absolutely. Yeah, that's something that I've actually thought a little bit about recently, but maybe others haven't. And we're going to talk here in a second about just how, farming in Arkansas has changed in recent years. And a lot of that is due to technological advances. But one thing that you may or may not think about is with technological advances, you're getting more grain out of the ground, and that can negatively affect the duck population. Is
Hmm.
that a good assumption?
Yeah, yeah, and I often wonder if it is really affecting the population, or it's displacing the population and pushing them to to find new places instead of the ones that they traditionally used.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. But we want them. We want them here. So
Yeah, we do.
yes, we want them here. All right. So to that point, yeah. How what are some of the ways that just the farming industry in Arkansas has changed in recent years?
Yeah, I would say in the last probably 7 years, we've seen row rice become a bigger deal. And this is I was talking about furrow irrigation earlier. It's not something you would typically do traditionally for rice, but with new hybrids that can withstand new chemicals, we're able to put rice on rows and be able to irrigate it with polypipe. Um, we do see a savings in water. We do see a savings in fuel, and we're able to get applications down that we would have had to do with a plane with an airplane crop duster before. So it allows us to be more efficient and more effective, um, and so that's something you see. However, not every field's compatible with row rice. Maybe there's a type of drain, there's a weird drain in the field, or a different grade that's not good for it, or maybe it was zero graded traditionally, and so row rice wouldn't be applicable there. So we've also seen what we're calling multi-inlet irrigation. Historically, what we would do to flood a rice field, we would have a riser head uh, where you would pump water into the field in the corner, and we would push that water across the field. Now we're simply taking that flexible poly pipe and stringing it alongside the side of the field, and irrigating it within each rice levee instead of pushing it across the field. And we've seen that helps with efficiency and really speed getting water on and off.
So with row rice, just because that's a new trend in the industry, am I hearing you correctly when I say just because row rice is a thing now, that doesn't mean you can necessarily grow rice outside the delta? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. You still need those heavier soil types. You need to keep it tacky. It is still a semi-aquatic plant, so it still requires you to do that. If you probably could do it on lighter soil, I think you would probably end up net zero once you got through with the year with having to keep it wet all year long or all
Yeah.
summer long.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. What about new technologies, or you've hit on new techniques in terms of row rice, obviously being a big one, but
Yeah,
any other new technologies you want to talk about?
yeah, technology's come so far. It's capable of doing a lot more in a shorter amount of time. I think some of the bigger things that we see is combines are so much more efficient than they used to be. They are getting every kernel, every grain, where they used to leave a lot behind. Um, and so that's a big one. People putting tracks on their equipment is I wouldn't say it's a newer trend, but it's becoming more popular. They're able to get in the field faster, stay longer. That ensures that you get every bit of the crop that's out of the field. You get every piece of dirt turned over before the winter rains start in. So it is a big benefit to the farmer on getting work done. Um, let's see. Seed genetics and chemical composition. I mean, those are big ones too. I mean, I think without our advances in seed genetics, we're not seeing the great yields that we're seeing now, and the resistance to diseases and all that has been really impressive. It's just really taken off over the last 20 years with
Mhm.
enhancements.
Oh, I'm sure it has. I'm sure it has. Well, to that, have you seen any evolution in terms of demand for farmland over the last several years, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I think one thing we've seen, and I don't really know how to quantify it, but you don't see a lot of cropland on the market for substantial periods of time, and I think you do see investor groups are getting more and more interested in buying cropland to diversify their portfolio. Um, so I think that's one thing. But area farmers are always on the lookout as well. So if you have a local guy who's doing well, and 80 acres comes up across the road, he's going to be really itching to get in on it. So there is absolutely demand, and that's the thing about real estate or land in general is they're not making any more of it. So it's
Yep.
always the demand is always going to be there for it.
No doubt, man. Um, well, this is going to be a little bit of a subjective question, but it's one of the last ones that I have. How do you see the future of Arkansas farming changing, and what new opportunities might you see coming about in the next decade or so?
Yeah, I'm just gonna give you the best educated guess as I can. I think we're still gonna see a lot of rice farms. I think we're gonna see a lot of. I think we'll still see a lot of cotton. Cotton equipment has gotten really expensive, so you may see more contract work, specifically harvesting. Um, I don't think those types of farms are going anywhere. It would not surprise me to see a larger specialty rice market start hopping up. Uh, think about jasmine or anything like that that people are really starting to be attracted to. Um, Other than long and medium grain that we currently grow a lot of, but other types of land use, man. Wind and solar are something, sustainable energy is going to, that's not going anywhere. That's going to increase to be a really important piece of our environment going forward. Um, uh, I'm very curious if the market is going to demand more things like organic crops, conventional, sustainably grown food. And if that continues to be the case, it wouldn't surprise me to see an opportunity more for further crop diversification here. I mean, we've got the ability to do it. We've just always been able to do it through cotton, soy, corn, and rice. If there's incentives or demand for more sustainable organic crops, I think that we'll see that.
Peanuts has been one that's been a surprise to me, but I always just associated peanuts with Georgia farming, and that's becoming a pretty big thing here in Arkansas, is it not?
Yeah, I know several farmers who are getting into peanuts. I'm really curious to see how it goes. I think it could really help further diversify that crop portfolio. And selfishly the deer like peanuts too, so I'm all about it.
Yeah. I love that. And in terms of farmers leasing their land for recreational purposes, that that's big money industry too, right? So someone who might be interested in investing in an ag piece, they're also going to get that diversified revenue stream from hunting lease.
Absolutely. And there is no shortage of people who are wanting to lease hunting ground. It could be individuals or families or camps, but it could also be corporations or businesses that are wanting to have a way to entertain their clients. There's always going to be that going on. So yeah, the opportunity with ag property in Arkansas is it's not just going to be relying on the crop portion of it. I mean, there is going to be a recreational piece, and even if you aren't interested in leasing it out to others, having that as a recreational thing of your own, if you're a hunter, is holds a lot of value in itself. Something you can pass down to your family and create new traditions. I think that goes a long way with people.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Chance, I'm curious, and I'm sure others are. How many banded mallards have you killed?
You know, I've not been one of the lucky ones to have a stringer full. There's five on my lanyard. Uh, I think I would have to. I share a couple of those with people who I just ended up winning the quarter toss with. But
Would they say
yeah,
that you share them, or is this just you?
uh, it probably depends on the day.
It depends on who you ask, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I trust you. I believe you.
that's right.
I'm gonna leave you with this because I know this will probably get you the most excited of everything we've talked about. What's the biggest Arkansas deer that you've ever killed, and is there a cool story behind it that you'd like to share?
Um, it's interesting. The cool stories are often uh, aren't exclusive to the big ones. But uh, in 2007, we had hunted a place. My family had hunted a place for, I mean, since my dad was a little kid, and I grew up hunting out there. There's hilarious pictures of me as like 5 years, 6 years old, hunting squirrels, learning how to hunt out there. And in 2007, we lost the property. The property sold. It's how it goes. And uh, that year, I killed the biggest deer that I had ever killed out there. He was great. And I remember the morning. I remember everything about the morning. It was uh, December 17th. It was super cold. Me and my dad used walkie-talkies, two-way radios at the time. And my dad always accused me of sleeping in the deer stand, and I always denied it, of course. I absolutely did a lot of sleeping in the deer stand. So this particular morning, I was asleep in the deer stand and woke up and looked around, and there's this beautiful deer and walking across this patch of cut over timber, and that it's just muscle memory. I pull up, I shoot him. He didn't go anywhere. It was great. And the first thing my dad said to me when he got there was, "Were you asleep when you saw this deer?"
He knows you too well.
Yeah. So
Oh
yeah,
man,
no, it was great.
that's awesome. That's a great story, man. Well, hey,
Yeah.
thanks for hopping on, man. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot. I hope others did too. I'm fired up for you to join the team. I think you're going to kill it. And um, yeah, thank you to everyone else who is listening. This was our first Arkansas specific podcast, and in our expert opinion. This won't be the last, but I'm excited for everyone else to learn a little bit more about everything this great state has to offer. But until next time, thank you again for listening. Appreciate y'all and have a good one.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you for listening to In Our Expert Opinion Real Estate Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss any of our upcoming episodes. For more on land and commercial real estate, please connect with us at saundersrealestate.com.